Vayancha vayarivecha v'achicha samar shel yadatu. Moshe Rabbeinu, in his favorite word, includes his magnificent farewell address to the Klal Yisrael. And he told them that you were Vayancha vayarivecha, you were put to a test, and you endured pain and hunger to see if you'll pass the test, and you'll be really faithful. You have complete faith and trust in the Almighty. And the Sage Chazal tells us the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, Mishnah in Chelek, it says that unfortunately, even though it was a very, very special generation, the Dor HaMidbar, that generation, Eloi Chelek Le'Nahabo. He forfeited that valuable piece of real estate, eternity. They'll be denied it. What makes for someone to be able to gain and to have that Chelek Le'Nahabo eternity, and what makes him forfeit and lose it? We would imagine that the distance from someone who is going to go to heaven, eternity, to Gan Eden, and the one that unfortunately will go to Gehenna, to hell, the distance couldn't be further, is even further than imaginable than east to west or north to south. Be so far. And the Vilna Gaon says, no, it's not so. He says, the Gemara tells us, Ein bein Gehenna and Gan Eden, the distance between Gehenna, between earning eternity and going to heaven, and unfortunately forfeiting it, is Kechut HaSayre, is like the breath of the thickness of a hair. Two people can be engaged in doing the same thing, and for one is going to earn him a share in eternity, and the other one, unfortunately, he'll forfeit it. I happened to be passing one time a monastery with a magnificent manicured lawn. It looked like it was manicured. It looked like each blade, one was cut by hand. And there was a very conspicuous 4-foot by 8-foot sign. It read, "No trespassing allowed. All violators will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." It was signed Sisters of Mercy. So there you've got, in one sentence, you can have what you can gain and what you can't gain. During the war, unfortunately, where every moment Jews were being put into crematoriums, 6 million martyrs were put to death, innocent, only because they were Jewish. And sometimes with the question of the right amount of money and the right time and the right channels, they were able to snatch lives out of the crematoriums. So some of our greatest rabbis, our tremendous leaders and scholars that overwhelmingly mastered the Talmud and were such God-fearing individuals, they sat with Jews, men of means, on Shabbos. They sat with them. He said, "Take out your checkbook." Who are Jews going to take out a pen and write a check on Shabbos? He said, "You take out your checkbook, you take out a pen, and you can write out a check. It's going to save Jews." So somebody else can take a pen and he'll write there. He started writing something, one thing, and here's a man who's writing a pen to save Jews. This one is going to earn eternity, and this one is going to, unfortunately, there's stories along like this. There's so many, unfortunately. There was unfortunately there was a father that was a noose, and the Nazis with their brutality, they reduced Jews to subhuman beings. So they took one particular gentleman, put a noose around his neck, and he's standing on a stool. And just to be more sadistic, they told the son, "Now you take that stool and kick it out from under your father's feet. So to take and kick out a stool from underneath his father's feet, my goodness, he couldn't do it. They told him, they said, you kick that stool out from under your father's feet or I will shoot you. He wouldn't do it. The father said to him, my son Ingele, I'm your father, and you're commanded to respect me. I'm telling you, observe the commandment of respecting your father. You kick that stool from under my feet. Go judge whether a person who can gain Olam Haba and who cannot gain Olam Haba. There's a story like this, many stories like this, where two people can be doing the same thing, and one will gain from it eternity, and one unfortunately will. There was the very famous, the great sage, the Taz, and his writings in the Code of Jewish Law are adhered to and revered by scholars and Jews worldwide. There was a pogrom, a massacre of Jews. He was running and hiding, and the only place he could find himself to hide was to work in a slaughterhouse. And of course his identity had to be hidden. So he worked as someone who prepares the hind quarter of an animal, removes the veins. It's a labor for befitting a man, a scholar of his stature. My goodness, to stand there with an apron with blood all over him, a giant in Torah. And he kept his identity hidden. And someone who recognized him, he said, heaven forbid, don't reveal who I am. He says, because, this will help me gain a seat to eternity. If I do this work here, and I do it honestly, without any recognition whatsoever, he says that, and being so humiliated in the fact that man that enjoys such a position of honor, respect, and prominence, he stands in a slaughterhouse like any other laborer. That community had a rabbi who was somewhat learned, but wasn't quite the giant that the Taz was. So he undertook to adjudicate questions in Jewish law, psak halacha amongst kosher trade. He decided whatever he had at his disposal, from his background, whatever he had, his depth in Torah. So there was a little child came with a shayla, with a question, and the family was starving from hunger, and the rabbi looked at it and he said, it's not kosher. So she started crying. So he saw this great sage saw this, and he saw what the question at hand was. So he called her a little girl. He said, come here. He said, listen carefully, and you memorize this chapter and verse and the subdivision that I'm going to tell you. Listen carefully and tell the rabbi you should look in the Code of Jewish Law, laws that deal with kosher and trade. Look, and he himself had authored it. It was already printed. He said, you look in this verse and chapter, and so he repeated it several times until she absorbed it. She committed it totally to memory. And she went over to the rabbi. She said to the rabbi, he said, I understand that in the Code of Jewish Law, which deal with kosher and trade, in chapter so-and-so, section so, verse, subject so-and-so, it mentions a case like this, and that is kosher. So he opens up the Code of Jewish Law, and he's astounded. He said, where did you ever get that from? So he said, the one who takes out the veins from it. What? He runs over to him and says, you must tell me. I said, I decree upon you, who are you? Even though he didn't want his identity to be known, but in order that he should follow what he's saying and adjudicate it accordingly, so he says, I'm the author, I'm so-and-so. So he said, are you right? It's kosher. So he asked him, Didn't you want to gain a share in eternity by keeping your identity hidden? He said, oh my goodness, I give every share in eternity for the tears of a young child. Charani Berkash Omer, Rosh HaKosh Baruch Zakei Shesh Yisrael, the Tikva B'Torah Mitzvah Shnamar, Ad Melchov Izman Shivko Yaakov Tev Yadu.